Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Bowling. Welcome to Cashin' In. Our Cashin' In crew this week: Wayne Rogers, Jonathan Hoenig, Bob Beckel, and Star Parker. Welcome, everybody. First, it was the big cities, and now the suburbs. Poverty is a painful reality for nearly 1 in 5 Americans. That staggering number includes moms, dads, and kids. In 1964, President Johnson declared a national war on poverty. Over the decades since, taxpayers have funded a massive redistribution of wealth. In the years since that declared war, welfare spending is up 11,000%. And spending on food stamps has ballooned 32,000%. With trillions of tax dollars diverted to combat poverty, one would think poverty levels would fall. The exact opposite is happening. American poverty has exploded to 15.9%, the highest in nearly half a century. And there's more. America's biggest suburbs are now home to the largest number of Americans living in poverty. The dream of a suburban house with a white picket fence has given way to the fastest growing sector of American poverty. The sad but true reality: the new face of American poverty is right next door. And an amazing correlation: as the spending on poverty goes up, the more it's spreading. So, Jonathan, let's start with you. Break it down. Why are we spending so much more, yet poverty continues to rise?
Well, and interestingly, Eric, before we began the war on poverty, the poverty level had actually been dropping precipitously. In fact, it fell by about half from 1950 to the mid-1960s when Lyndon Johnson began the war on poverty. Since then, as your piece pointed out, it's been $16 trillion spent on the war on poverty. That's actually more than we've spent on all the military wars in history. And the net result, as you pointed out, is higher poverty levels. It's because the safety net itself is destructive. It creates basically two classes: victims, that is, taxpayers, productive people, and parasites who are the recipients of the welfare, and tell you it doesn't help their long-term benefit, their prospects either.
So, Star, can we point the finger at higher spending as the cause of higher poverty?
Well, it's not just the spending alone. What happens with the welfare state is it rewards ill behavior. So what we've seen is marriage collapse as a result of the means tests that are attached to government dependency. When marriage collapses, you end up with the scenario we have, where 40% of American children are now raised in single-headed households. So with that, you have poverty. There's just no question. And the values we're starting to see now in the suburbs that we thought were insulated inside of our inner cities and our ghetto communities are now spilling out. The white out-of-wedlock birth rate today is 8% higher than where blacks were in the 60s when they started this social engineering. That's the problem.
So, Bob, what do you think? Why is poverty spread to the suburbs?
Well, first of all, let's correct something that I hate to correct Jonathan, although it would be a full-time job if I had enough time. The reality is, in the 1950s and early 1960s, you're very right, the poverty rate was falling. It also was the greatest growth of the middle class in the history of this country, and most of that was people who were in the suburbs. So that's not a surprise. What has happened, I think, at least demographically, is you see a lot of people fled the inner city. A lot of minorities who were in the middle class went, I could use my own area of Washington, D.C., in Prince George's County, which was almost all white, is now almost all black.
What's that got to do with poverty?
Well, because what happened was that people...
So Bob's playing the race card, basically.
You know, Jonathan, I can get away with it because I'm a liberal and you can't. So be careful with that one, all right?
No, but just point out. I mean, so what?
What's your point?
So what if there
My
was
point is
immigration of blacks from the suburbs?
I started by saying blacks before I was rudely interrupted.
Yeah, because what you have to say... Well, Bob, you have to be honest about what happened there. Families moved into the suburbs. Black families, intact, husbands, wives, children, moved to get better schools so that they can have a better economic future.
Correct.
So to try to make it racially dynamic, the racial dynamic that you're trying to paint is not the real picture. What we did is we allowed the inner cities full of just single-headed households.
All right, go ahead,
you know, if I could just finish my sentence, I said the minorities, blacks moved out, so did a lot of ethnic groups like Polish and others who moved out of their own ghettos in the cities and moved out to the suburbs, seeking the middle class. The problem was that they were on edge in terms economically on whether they were in a position to afford to move to the suburbs, but they were in fact had to because the school system was terrible. I mean, part of this is, you know, you can blame Johnson's war on poverty all you want. The reality is the reason that poverty has gone up in America.
Listen, I don't want the war on poverty. I think we should end the war on poverty.
Well, John, hang in there. Hang in there.
I think we should end the war on poverty, too.
I want to bring Wayne in here. Wayne, the very much reality, the reason why a lot of people in the suburbs, black or white, are falling falling below the poverty line is because the jobs the good jobs evaporated, the construction jobs, the manufacturing jobs, and they gave way to retail and fast food jobs.
A lot of that is true, Eric, but I think the statistics are somewhat misleading when Jonathan quoted them the way they did. After 1996, when the Clinton administration, by the way, changed the Act, the Welfare Act, poverty actually was reduced for the next 10 years. So this is a recent phenomena from about 2008 up to today that we've had this massive increase, and it's been a huge increase just in the last 4 or 5 years. And so that the statistics don't tell you all of that about the suburbs.
And that dovetails the lousy economy over the last 4 or 5 years, doesn't it?
Well, wait, hold on, Bob. Now, we spend a lot of time on TV where you're telling me the economy's gotten better because President Obama has made the economy
better.
Yeah, but look at the numbers. Jonathan, the numbers, skyrocketing entitlement spending, it's just off the charts.
Yeah, and if you
and we have to look at two other factors.
Bob, if you're such a knowledgeable liberal, go back and read what Lyndon Johnson said about the war on poverty. It wasn't supposed to be this long-term entitlement. The whole idea was to get people up self-sufficient and make this, essentially make the system self-sufficient, not this ongoing tax on the productive members of society.
But you can't do that when you reward ill behavior.
Well,
you can't do that when the means test the law. But can I address something you said about what happened in 2008?
All right,
what happened in 2008?
Jonathan, you happen to be wrong. After Lyndon Johnson, the war on poverty did go down for a period of time. Then it began to rise. Then in 1996...
And it's higher now than it was when we started the war on poverty.
Jonathan, you got to learn to be quiet and let other people speak. Try a little politeness now and then. So, what I'm trying to say is in 1996, when the law changed, and under the Clinton administration, and the Congress was a Republican Congress, am I correct, Bob?
Right.
Yes. And it changed. Then poverty again went down. So you had a whole
we also had a
period.
booming economy
for
those period of years.
You've got to learn to shut your mouth.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let me do this. Let me break this up.
I want to make 2 points. Would I be able to?
I want you to make a point, but I want to also point out that poverty, the most recent number, 15.9%, the highest since that Lyndon Johnson war on poverty, and also spending the highest since then as well. Let me, go ahead.
Right. So you have to look at a couple of factors. Someone brought up 2008, and why did we see that shift? Why we saw that shift where poverty numbers started going back up after we reduced poverty numbers, because we got rid of some of the means tests during welfare reform. The reason that it went back up is because Nancy Pelosi had the gavel and they signed into law new increases in minimum wage. When you increase the minimum wage, you increase poverty.
All right,
and when you also simultaneously allow for family breakdown, you increase poverty.
You ought to try it sometime.
Bob, Wayne, John, Starr, we're going to have to leave it there.